Welcome to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast with your host, legendary powerlifter and strength athlete, Chad Ikes. For most, the journey of strength starts in the gym, but should inevitably expand through all aspects of life. Join us as we discuss all things strength. Now, here's your host, Chad Ikes.
I'm back. And today's episode is going to be about discipline. This is a really interesting word to me, and my definition or thinking on the word has definitely changed over the years. Out on my walk this morning, I was thinking about it. Actually, all morning I've been thinking about it. In terms of like programming, where when I grew up, you had a program. You had to do the program. Like, you didn't miss the program. Like, I didn't mind adding to it. I didn't mind kicking up the intensity, but I never missed. I never, backed things down. Like, that was my minimum line. And to me, that was discipline. It was discipline that I did my programs. To the point that when I was a kid, I would train if I was sick. If I physically could not train, I would make that training session up, even if it meant train twice the next day. I would get in fights with my father. I remember one time he came home and he had got tickets to the St. Louis Cardinals ball game, and I loved going to Busch Stadium to watch the Cardinals. And I was like, yep, sorry, I haven't trained yet today, so I can't go. And we got into a huge fight. Of course, looking back now, he was right. And it's not, if you train consistently and hard, missing those few actually is probably going to be better for you than staying with it. But the point being, this is the way I grew up. And even as I got older and it really became, my training was a way to deal with my anger and deal with my frustrations of life. So like, I sure as shit wasn't going to miss training. That was the highlight of my day and my life at some points. And that was discipline. I'm disciplined. I never miss a session. I always go. And after, 40 some odd years of lifting, I disagree with that to an extent. I do believe we should evolve. And I'm talking as a human. I think it was Muhammad Ali said, if you're the same at 50 as you were at 30 and 40, you've wasted your life. So we should evolve as people. You should learn and have more knowledge and more experiences and be a better person the older you are, because you should change and grow your whole life. Well, training is the exact same way. You should get smarter. You should learn more. You should evolve as a lifter. Not to mention, with training and kind of with life, things are going to change. You're a human being. You're up against different stuff all the time. Your training needs to change and adapt to those situations. And as you're changing and adapting, you're gaining tools for your toolbox so that when the next thing comes up, you're like, oh, you know what? I did this last time. This is a similar situation. Let's start with that and then adjust from there. So I think when you're a beginning lifter, having that program and sticking to that program and having the discipline to stick to that program, I think that's very important. Partially because now you have a set baseline. And if you're not journaling everything, you still need to be thinking about it and considering it and going, hey, I stuck to this program this time. I did exactly what it said. Here's the results. Were these results good or bad? You know, if they're bad, tweak the program a little bit next time. See what happens at the end of that program. So you're continually learning. But the thing is that people forget, a new lifter compared to an advanced lifter, there's a big ass window that's wide open when you're a beginner. This is the window for error. You can do all kinds of shit wrong and you're still going to make gains. The better a lifter you get, that window just keeps closing more and more and more. And if you're a high level lifter or world record holder, that next 5 pounds is going to need a lot of perfection because things aren't as easy. You've got more and more things pinned down where the room for error becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. A new lifter does not have the muscle control of an advanced lifter. A new lifter has shitty technique. A new lifter usually has very little idea how to read their body. They have very poor muscle control. They probably haven't figured out their nutrition or their sleep, and they're still in the stage of just beating the crap out of themselves in the gym and thinking that's discipline and not looking at much outside the gym. They haven't had the experience of knowing how a program works with them because they've never done that many programs and they've never changed that much stuff. They've just followed what somebody told them to do in most cases. Well, an advanced lifter has great muscle control. They can go into the gym and lift all light weight and make it heavy as hell if they want to. When they're lifting a weight, their technique is perfect, which means they're lifting more weight, which is putting more stress on their central nervous system. It's putting more stress on their muscles and tendons and ligaments. People tend to think as you get stronger, you can do more. And it's actually a little bit of the opposite of that. The stronger you get, the more you're taxing your body and you end up doing less. I don't care who you are, squatting 800 pounds, squatting 1,000 pounds, benching 8 or 1,400. Our body is not set up to do that. Yes, we can make it do that, but it's not set up to take it and keep doing that. It's extremely stressful on our whole system. So this means things change. You're going to need more recovery. You're going to have to focus more on recovery and focus less on training. And honestly, that's the way it should be. You've trained and worked so hard. That's your reward. Your reward is, man, you have time to do all the other stuff you put to the side to get here. Now you're going to get a little time to go back and do some of those things. You're going to have time for your relationship. You're going to have more time if you decide to have kids. You're going to have more time for your career because now you're so efficient that it takes a whole lot less time in the gym to stimulate that growth. Now the biggest challenge is the recovery. And when you're new, it's flip-flopped. You're probably young. You're probably pumping shit tons of hormones. You're probably just eating like a horse because you're a kid and you don't care. So your recovery's easy. Your problem is, how do I stimulate enough growth to equal my recovery? So it's actually flip-flop. So as you go through your whole career, things are going to change. And I can just hear people's thoughts right now. Discipline is about training hard. I never miss. I train hard all the time. I don't care if I'm sick. I don't care if I'm overtrained. I don't care if I'm hurt. I'm still going to be in the gym. I'm still going to train. And they think that it's this big damn deal. They think that it's this impressive thing. But it doesn't impress me at all because that's beginner discipline. You're no longer a beginner and you're still thinking discipline is what you had in the beginning. And I struggled with this. This was something that took me a while to actually learn, and I'm still embracing. Discipline at a high level is doing what's best for your body. It's not following a program. It's not doing what everyone else is doing. It's not doing what you want to do. It's doing what's best for your body. I always took pride, and still to some sense do take pride, in how hard I could push myself. What I could take and keep going through. And in the beginning, I think that was okay. I think it built great bone density. I think it built great tendon strength. I think it built great ligament strength, and it built mental toughness where I could push through anything once I set my mind to it. As I started getting better, as I started meeting better athletes, as I started meeting some of the best lifters and strongmen, Highland Games guys in the world, I became completely baffled by how they did not do what was on their program. How they very easily adjusted it to what they needed. To the point that I would be talking to one of the best in the world. And they're like, yeah, sometimes I go in, and my back, something feels weird in my back, and I just call it. For me, this was, it was like shifting my transmission into reverse at 60 miles an hour. Like my brain was completely and utterly confused. And I would be like, oh, so you like, what, you just did more of a warm up and then finished, or you came back later that day, or you did it the next day? They're like, no, I just missed it. I just went home. And I'm like, yeah, I don't understand. What are you saying? Like, when did you do that workout then? They're like, I didn't. My body was telling me something wasn't right and it wasn't ready to be training that day, so I didn't do it. And I'm like confused as all hell by this. Come sometime later, I'm talking to somebody else and they're like, yeah, if I'm lifting and I feel that little twinge in my shoulder, like I just back off that day, and then I'll skip my main movement and I'll do some of my supplemental stuff. But if anything bothers it at all, I just don't do it. And I'm like, wait a minute. What do you mean? Like when do you make that up? Like you do it later that day? I don't understand. Like, what do you mean? How? I had a time where I was doing a Highland Games out of town, and I had a friend that was a pro strongman, and I called him up, and I'm like, hey man, I want to come train with you guys on Monday because I'm going to hang out in town for a little bit. I go, I'm going to be, useless after the Highland Games, but I'll help load plates or whatever. Just want to hang out and, help you guys train. And so Monday rolls around and I'm like, dude, like you said, you were going to call me. Would you go into the gym or what? And he's like, nah, man, I'm seriously stressed out. I had a really bad day at work. I'm just going to go home and relax. All right, well, let me know when you train in tomorrow then, because I'll still be here. And he's like, oh no, I missed it. It's done. What? What do you mean you missed it? It's done. What the heck does that mean? And I kept getting stories like this. And I kept listening to people. And then I would go to gyms that you hear all these stories about. And then when you actually meet the people at these popular big gyms, you find out they're not doing what all the articles say they're doing, that they're reading their bodies. And they're doing they have a plan. Yes, they have a plan. But that plan is subject to be changed at any time, depending on how they feel and what they're doing. And this is very hard for me because I was very regimented. Here's my program. This is what I do it all the time. That was a difficult thing for me to realize. And what helped me realize that was very simply the fact that, wait a minute, what I think is discipline isn't necessarily discipline anymore. I need to move up. I need to train my discipline to a higher level. I need to train my discipline to that of a world-class athlete. And that means having that program, but knowing that I need to listen to my body. Nobody can write me a program that's going to cover the changes in life, that's going to cover the things that are going on within my body, that's going to cover my stress, that's going to cover just everything that goes on that's different with a human. So although that program is great and right, I need to listen to my body. My body is the top thing to listen to. My training program is under that. And this took a tremendous amount of will and training to become that discipline and to know, to be able to separate when's the day I kick it up and when's the day I back it off. Because again, I'll bet money there's people out there going, man, some of my best days are when I didn't want to do it and I did it and I had the best training ever. Okay, yeah, that happens. Sometimes we're wrong. I agree. But if you go back and you look at all the days that you felt bad, how many times did it turn out good compared to how many times did it turn out bad? I can say with a pretty good certainty that every injury I've ever had, there were signs. And I ignored them because I was thinking, oh, you just got to tough through it. You got to make it a great training session. And I should have listened to my body because every one of those injuries set me back months. And now my pecs are all torn up and I have tears in my biceps and I have tears in my hamstrings. And I have my battle scars because I didn't listen. Oh, granted, you're going to have battle scars. That's going to happen no matter what. It's going to happen no matter how good you are. But I would have a whole lot less if I would have learned this lesson sooner. But I'm kind of hard-headed, and it kind of takes me a while. But when I do learn it, I learn it well. So I think when you're a new lifter, you need to follow the program. You need to stick with it. But you also need to be aware to start learning, because eventually your discipline is going to have to kick it up to the next level. And what you learn in the beginning by pushing yourself, and you can do this through journaling, like, hey, I felt like crap today, went ahead and pushed through it and got it done. What was the aftermath of that? Did you end up having a great session, or did you end up getting hurt, or did you find that now 4 days, 5 days later, you're still sore as hell and beat to crap from that session? And start keeping track of those things, even if it's just in your head. And that's going to start being your guide of when am I to the point that now I need to kick my discipline game up and start listening to my body, because I have all this experience now. Because now I'm starting to push weights that my window for error is getting smaller and smaller. I've looked through the top 100 lists before, and it's kind of interesting. You'll see a lot of guys at the bottom, then you'll see a thicker group in the middle, and then you'll see the few guys at the top. And I think what happens is a lot of guys get to be pretty good, but they can't change to that next level. And that next level is letting go of the meathead mentality. It's using your mind and reading your own body and listening to what it is and being okay with taking that time to recover, being okay with the fact that, listen, I didn't recover. I need some time off from the gym, or I need some light sessions, a deload, if you will. And then I either need to kick up my recovery game or I need to adjust my training. And looking at it in terms of, do I want to go to the gym to beat the crap out of myself to control whatever issues I have, or just because I like pushing myself every day as hard as I can, or do I want to be a really great lifter? Generally speaking, they usually don't go hand in hand. You will see there are some guys that end up being really good who push the shit out of themselves, and they end up doing massive amounts of drugs. They end up ruining lots of relationships. They end up being really beat up when they're older. And from my perspective, they could have changed, probably been even better lifters, and been a whole lot healthier and a whole lot better lives. Like, we're only in the gym a short amount of time. Even if you train a lot, you're only in the gym a short amount of time. There's a whole lot of life outside the gym that I prefer to have be pretty good too. And you can make that happen. Yes, you're going to have to sacrifice. Yes, your balance isn't going to be perfect if you want to be one of the best in the world. But this concept that everything else has to be trash in order to be the best in the world is really a bunch of bullshit that people tell themselves because it's what they want to hear. Because they don't want to do the work to actually balance it. They don't want to do the work to figure out why they can't listen to their bodies. And this was for me. It was the case for me. I had a hard time learning to listen to my body. I had a hard time backing off. And even though I backed off a lot more than most and was able to become a great powerlifter, I honestly still didn't back off enough due to my narcolepsy and my depression. I probably should have been doing less. Like what I was doing was great for all my training partners and they were all doing really well. I needed more time off and I took a little more, but not what I should have. But live and learn. Now I have all this knowledge to pass on to people. So it's all good. So I think we just need to change how we look at discipline. And this actually goes back to linear periodization. I'm not a huge fan of linear periodization. For those guys of you that don't know, it's basically going, I got to meet in 12 weeks. So I'm going to start by doing 75% for sets at 12. And you're gradually going to increase the percentage, decrease the reps. One of the problems I always had with that when I was doing it is like, I can't miss. Because if I miss, what do I do? Do I just skip it? Do I add that one to the next week? If I go to that the next week, then I'm not going to hit my peak at the end. And I was all freaked out about missing things. And when I actually got the chance to talk to some world record holders that trained linear periodization their whole life, they basically helped me see that it's not a big deal, man. You know, if you get sick, if you're not feeling good that week, so you don't hit your number, just cut everything way back, move on to the next week. Not a problem. And that makes it work a whole lot better. It goes a whole lot smoother and is way more successful. So I don't necessarily look at linear periodization the same way. I look at it as, hey, great people did it. People got very successful on it. So if it's not working for you, you're probably not executing it correctly. And looking back, I was not executing it correctly. I'm a fan of conjugate, so I'd still train more conjugate now. But I would not be opposed to and maybe that's something I'll do in the future, go, hey, I'm going to take 12 weeks and do a linear periodization to just see what happens now. With more knowledge and more ability to listen to my body and not freak out about every little session. Like strength it amazes me how long it takes to get strong. But how most people think you can get weak so fast. Like if I miss one session this week, I'm going to get weak. No, you're not. Strength doesn't come that fast and it doesn't go that fast. I know people that have taken 2 weeks off and come back stronger. I've taken 3 or 4 weeks off and come back and went, okay, yeah. Take me 1 or 2 training sessions to get back at it, but I'm right where I was, if not better. So that amazes me how people are so worried about missing one thing and like it's going to make all this effect. Like, well, if you added another session in a week, you're still not going to, you're only going to get as strong as your recovery. Anyway, please like this podcast. Please share this podcast. Please check out Courage Barbell on YouTube channel if you're not watching this on the YouTube channel. Check out Chad Ikes on Instagram. Check out CourageBarbell.com. And until next time, I'm out of here.
Thanks for listening to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast. For more information, please visit CourageBarbell.com. Until next time.